for science, the wellness world, the medicine world, the science world? Is it just to get us to waste away and die, get sick and just rot and fall apart and lose everything and not function? Like, what's their real goal? I notice that science always hits the things that are sacred, and honey's sacred. Bees are sacred too, they make the honey. But science tends to hit those sacred things. So they then condition everyone that sugar is a problem, right? And sugar's in honey, so that's a problem. But what's interesting is, did you ever hear about the carnivore diet, right? Where it's people who, they were sick from eating standard American diet or whatever, standard Europe diet, and they were eating not good all those years. Processed foods, fast foods, greasy foods, whatever. And then it went and picked the carnivore diet, where they only felt better by getting rid of all the cakes, cookies, and donuts, and all the bad stuff. And they started just eating meat, and meat only. So every day it was like mono meat meals. It's like I'm having my ground chopped beef in the morning, in the afternoon, having a burger, just a burger, no bun, no nothing. Later on, I'll have a steak, and I'm feeling better. Like I'm coming around. I like this carnivore diet thing. But then after you do it for a year, you start atrophying. Your workouts aren't the same. You start losing muscle instead of gaining muscle. If you're working out, you start bumping into walls because you don't have glucose to your brain. So too many people ran into this problem. So they started changing up the carnivore diet, and they brought in honey. And they brought that in, saying you could do honey now. You can do your meat all day long, or your meat and eggs all day long or something. And then you can bring in your honey. And it was kind of bringing them back to life. The carnivore people, they were like not zombies anymore, walking around like Walking Dead. They were starting to get their life back because they were getting sugar to their brain, their muscles, their heart, their body, their liver. The carnivore diet and every other diet out there always morphs. It's like one big chameleon. It changes. No one's keeping track of the changes. No one's saying, oh man, you just messed up people for the last 10 years on that diet. And now you're finally bringing in honey? It's like that with all the diets out there. No one's consistent. They're contradicting themselves over and over again. Each diet contradicts itself over and over again, and it learns from its mistakes. No one's tracking mistakes because there's a whole bunch of newcomers coming in like, oh, cool, I'm going to try this new diet. What year are we in? Are you guys still making mistakes? Because you made mistakes 10 years ago, you made mistakes 5 years ago. No one's knowing that. No one's being taught that. It's like you go into it and you don't know that they made a change up, right? It's like articles on the internet. They make mistakes. The article's up there. It's got misinformation. And then there's an update all of a sudden. 2021, there's an update in this article. Nobody knows that the last 20 years in that article, it just messed people up because it was just mistake after mistake in health. No one knows the history. There's no consistency. No one's being held accountable or at least called out for it. And there's a whole bunch of spoils of war, which is basically someone who just gets wronged along the way. And this can happen with anything in health. Take honey, for an example. Millions and millions of people are wronged because of the misinformation about honey. So let's get into it now. Science doesn't recognize there's more than just sugar in honey. They don't recognize phytochemical compounds in honey. They don't take the magic number, $250 million, a grant, a whole group of scientists, and start really looking into that honey. See what's in there. Herbs are medicine. Herbs are medicinal. If you pick an herb like mullein and you tea it, you got medicine right there. Phytochemical compounds, antiviral compounds, antibacterial compounds, antioxidants that are not even identified. All this medicine when you're doing herbal medicine, right? Well, what's a bee do? A bee is flying around and then it lands on an herb, a flowering herb, and it collects information. It collects medicine, nectar, and pollen. Let's take dandelions for an example. Dandelion greens, they're medicinal. Dandelion root is medicinal, helps with the liver. It's a blood cleanser, has all kinds of different nutrients in there. Well, the bee lands on the dandelion flower, and it's sitting there on the flower collecting pollen, collecting nectar from the dandelion flower. science and research, they haven't studied the nectar and the pollen on the dandelion flower. They haven't done their research. They haven't done their discoveries. They haven't taken the dandelion flower and put it under laboratory tests with armies of lab technicians and scientists to find the medicine. It would take decades and decades, hundreds of millions of dollars. And doesn't even mean they'll find what they're looking for because they don't know what they're looking for. It would be like one little discovery here, 10 years later, hundreds of millions of dollars, another little discovery here, and they wouldn't even scratch the surface of what's in that dandelion flower that the bee collects. And here's the crazy part. That bee takes that nectar and pollen, sticks it in its storage bin, the second stomach. It's just a storage bin for the nectar and pollen. And then takes a flight off that dandelion flower, and all of a sudden lands on another flower, a rose petal, a wild rose petal, something that science and research knows nothing about, doesn't know the qualities in there, the medicinal properties in there, and lands on that flower and collects the nectar and pollen from that wild rose petal and stores it in the stomach along with the dandelion flower properties
40 minutes
inside that stomach.
In the
and they
raw
mix.
honey, too much sugar.
Now,
medical
that
media
nectar
podcast.
and that pollen on the dandelion flower could have over 100 properties, medicinal properties,
40
and
minutes.
phytochemical compounds undiscovered by research and science. But here's the crazy thing. Then
Picking up a passenger.
it landed on the wild rose petal, the bee, and collected another 100 phytochemical compounds unknown to
Aurora.
medical research and science. That's already 200 wild
You're gonna Rosedale Avenue.
phytochemical compounds unknown to medical research and science sitting inside that bee's storage bin, the second stomach. And then it gets crazier. That same bee heads over to soapwort, the soapwort plant that has its flowers out in that moment, lands on the flowers of that soapwort plant and starts to collect another 100 or more phytochemical compounds undiscovered by medical research and science. But that's not where it stops. The bee has a busy day. It's going to hit a lot of plants. It then heads to thistle. It looks for those big, kind of purpley bluish thistle flowers, and it lands on those. And it collects pollen and nectar from that thistle flower, undiscovered properties, medicinal qualities, unknown to medical research and science, medicine, sitting inside that belly of that bee now. And from there, it heads to grandma's house. Now, grandma may not have some thistle in her yard. She might not have dandelion flowers in her yard. Maybe she uses a weed killer in her yard.
Y estaba entrando y saliendo.
But it heads
Entonces siempre
to
la
her
atrapé o
garden
nomás
of
saqué
flowers.
basuras y limpié ahí los
And
pretiles,
it
pero no
goes
le di
to
su
the flower,
limpiada ni al baño ni nada.
lands on a daylily,
Mañana ves
and
que no
collects
está tan
over
limpia como
100
otras veces.
phytochemical compounds
Chica, de
undiscovered
hecho
by
ahí está tu
research and
sobrina y
science.
la
Nectar and pollen on a daylily. But here's what's
La
crazy.
niña se llama
That
Belly,
same bee
estaba saliendo
leaves the
afuera para que
daylily
le digas allá y
and
que
goes
se
to a
asegure que las
marigold
puertas las
grandma's garden.
cerradas.
And then
Porque la
does it
niña está
all over
saliendo y
again.
entrando, entonces por eso
Collects another
no
100
mapea la
compounds,
cocina.
phytochemical compounds from the marigold. But here's another thing.
Okay.
It leaves the
No,
marigold
nada más era
and
para
heads to
decirte eso, que ya
grandma's
salí, pues, que
lavender.
no
And the
pude ahora
pollen
darle su
and the
limpiadita.
nectar on the lavender flowers
Sábados.
are being taken in by the
Ok,
bee
Cristina, bueno,
and stored
nos vemos el
away
lunes, primero Dios.
with its 100 or
Buenas
more
noches. Igual, hasta
phytochemical
luego.
compounds
Bye.
unknown to research and science. And from there, if there's some tulips there, the bee will head to the tulips. And it doesn't stop there. It just doesn't stop. The bee keeps on traveling to some other grandma's garden or somebody else's garden or even somebody's tomato garden. Here's what's crazy, right? Now, tomatoes, you don't eat the leaves of tomatoes because the leaves are toxic. But it's like that with fruit trees. It's like that with other plants. It's like that with a lot of different herbs where you can eat a certain part of a plant, but you don't eat another part of the plant. You don't eat the root of a certain plant, but you can eat the leaves. You know, there's this with the whole thing with herbal medicine, if you guys have looked into that, right? So what happens is with a tomato plant, you don't eat the leaves of the plant. You don't eat the flowers, you eat the tomato, the juicy ripe tomato. But the bee lands on the tomato flower and gathers over 100 phytochemical compounds off that tomato plant, that tomato flower, unknown to research and science, healing properties in there. Phytochemical compounds are healing properties. Now here's the next thing the bee does. Do you like peaches? Do you like nectarines? Do you like pears? Do you like apples? That bee will go to an apple tree and get the nectar and pollen from the flower, the apple blossom. Now, same thing like the tomato plant. You can't eat the apple leaves off the tree. If you go and you pluck all those coarse, astringent apple tree leaves off the tree and you want to eat them, you're going to wind up sick. You just are. You're not supposed to eat the leaves off an apple tree. And you're not supposed to eat the stems, meaning not the stems, but the branches off of that tree either. But those flowers have healing properties, and the bee collects that nectar and the pollen off that flower. And not just that flower, but a crab apple tree down the street. So then that bee then flies to the crab apple tree. Now here's what's crazy. Crab apple tree, well, no one's going to eat those apples. They're really astringent and tart and sour, right? The apples just fall off the tree. The deer come by and pick up those crab apples. No one eats them. But the flowers were medicine, and the bee grabs the medicine from those crab apple flowers. So that's another 100 or more phytochemical compounds unknown to research and science. And the bee takes the nectar and the pollen from that crabapple blossom and places it in its storage bin. What's amazing is that as each day goes by, as each week goes by, the season is changing. Different flowers are coming out, different plants, different herbs, wild herbs, flowers in flower gardens, fruit and vegetable gardens, people's backyards and their gardens, weeds that have healing properties, and herbs. All of it is just changing and shifting. And the bee, throughout those weeks, are going on different ones, different plants. Now, each day, one bee can hit 300 different plants each day. Think about that. Now, even if it's repeat plants and you end up with 40 different plants, and what's 40 times 100? 100 chemical compounds undiscovered by medical research and science times 40, we got 4,000. And then think about it. That's 4,000 phytochemical compounds undiscovered by medical research and science, healing properties from one bee in one day. One bee in one day. But what about all the other bees? Because it isn't one bee that makes all that honey in that beehive. What about those other hundreds of bees? What did they collect? What flowers were they on? What plants were they on? Or what was their journey along the way? How many did they collect phytochemical compounds? But it gets even more incredible and incredible. Think about this. There are plants that are edible. There are plants that are not edible. There are flowers that are edible. There are flowers that aren't. There's fruit that is edible and fruit that isn't. There's trees that you can get something edible from them, and there's trees you just can't touch because it's inedible on all levels. But yet, the bee has this miraculous God-given nature. It can transform the inedible to edible. Nothing else can. The bee can go into grandma's garden, onto a flower you can't eat, a toxic flower in her flower garden. A toxic flower that if a dog or a cat ate would get sick. That if a human ate, they would get sick. It would be toxic, it would be poisonous. Flower shops are filled with those kinds of flowers. And that bee can go on that toxic flower and collect over 100 different phytochemical compounds in the nectar and pollen, store it in its stomach, convert it into honey, transform the inedible to edible. Now that's plant medicine. Not even pharmaceutical companies that are toxic.
Adding new Lyft ride to queue.
And convert them to make them non-toxic for humans. Not even pharmaceutical companies have the power to do that. Only the bee does. One incredible medicinal property that the bee collects is propolis. And that propolis ends up in traces inside the honey. It's one of those incredible phytochemical compounds that has healing properties. After a long day of collecting medicine, the bee heads back to the nest. Its journey for the day is done. With the help of worker bees, it unloads its nectar and pollen. Now its nectar has a little bit of moisture in it, and the worker bees have to dry that moisture out. So they have to fan with their wings to get that moisture out of all that nectar, or the nectar will ferment. And if it gets fermented, it's spoiled and it's no good anymore. The medicine is ruined, it's fermented, it starts to change its structures, its chemical composition changes. So it's imperative that the moisture leaves the nectar or the honey is completely spoiled. As of now, in this day and age, in the present moment, we do not have advanced enough technology to decode the phytochemical compound structures and the amounts of them inside honey. There is no interest to finding the medicine, and there isn't the technology. But worse, there isn't the interest. That's the problem right there. That means in our lifetime, in our grandchildren's lifetime, in our great-grandchildren's lifetime, the medicine will never be found. And why would they want us to find the medicine? They're trying to teach us it's all sugar and honey's really not good for you. So let's talk a little bit about beekeeping practices, sustainable beekeeping practices. I think that's a concern for most people out there that are worried about their honey. They want to make sure the bees were treated good and the honey they're consuming or eating is the best and highest quality. So one of the big concerns is when we're raising bees, we're not starving them. See, bees need honey to survive a winter, and that's what they do. They produce honey to feed their colony. But bees overproduce honey, so they have more than enough honey to survive a winter. In 1 year, a colony of bees can produce up to 200 pounds of honey. It'll consume the honey throughout the year and then save a large amount for the winter. If a beekeeper is harvesting the honey, they should only harvest about 30 pounds. And depending upon the hive, it might even be best to have 20 pounds harvested or 25 pounds, but no more than 50 pounds is best. The reason, when those winter months come, the bees need their honey. You want to protect them. You want them to not starve. You want them to be able to eat the honey through the cold months. The best time to harvest honey is earlier in the year, in the spring or before it becomes summer, because this way the bees can then create more honey throughout the summer and fall, so they have that honey to survive the winter. It's important that a bee has a strong immune system because the bee is making your honey, the honey that you're going to be eating. And if the bee is producing the honey, the bee's immune system matters. It's part of how the honey is actually created. If a bee is really weak or damaged or injured or sickly, it's producing a sickly honey. It's still going to be good for you. It's still going to be providing so many incredible phytochemical compounds, but it may not be the strongest honey because the bee isn't functioning at its best. A bee needs to be functioning at its best to collect all that nectar, carry it to the nest. And inside that storage bin, that honey needs to start the process of being created. And we need a strong bee, a healthy bee, to make sure the honey is at its best. Even if the honey that you're eating comes from the weakest beehive, all the bees in that beehive are weak, listless, they have malaise. They're just walking around bumping into each other. They're not collecting the pollen right, not collecting the nectar right, not doing what they need to do. They're not busy enough. They're not feeling strong. They're not active enough. It's a weak beehive, you're still going to have honey that's offering something for your immune system. You're still going to have honey that's incredible for the body. But when the bees are at their best, the healthiest, strongest immune systems, functioning properly, then the honey is the most potent medicine. So what does honey do for us? What does it do for our immune system, our body? Well, science and research ignores it completely. The only thing you can find really is folklore, folk tales, old wives' tales for hundreds and hundreds of years, like placing honey on a wound, helping it to heal faster. Also, taking honey, putting it in your mouth, letting it sit on your throat. If you're under the weather, got a scratchy throat, you don't feel good, or if you're cold and you got the chills, and you need to reset the temperature inside your body. So you take a tablespoon of honey and do that repeatedly throughout the day. These are great things that have been used for hundreds of years. The thing is, though, that hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, no one had the technology or understanding of really what honey does as far as what's really happening with honey. Like, they spread it on a wound. They found out the wounds seemed to heal faster, but that's all they knew. And even today, we don't have the technology right now to know what honey does, all its healing properties, how honey really works. We don't have that now. 100 years from now, we still won't know what all those thousands upon thousands of phytochemical compounds do inside our body or on our body. But because honey was really used thousands of years ago, because it was really used hundreds of years ago to help people heal, we still carry that along with us now. So we can say, well, it's good for us. And it does work because we have that history of it really being in use. Even though we didn't know what it was doing for us. Like, we didn't know why back then it was helpful. 1,000 years ago, we didn't know why when you rubbed honey on a wound, it would heal faster or not get infected. We had no idea. And we still really don't. Science and research still doesn't have enough data, still hasn't discovered the real properties. We still don't know. It's actually guesswork. Remember, we're in a place now where medical communities in science and research and alternative health and conventional health thinks sugar will cause all disease. So sugar's the problem. Sugar will feed like candida, or sugar will make you sicker or cause a problem, cause cancer, cause cavities. Sugar will create that, is what they believe. Meanwhile, they're accepting that when you rub this honey, which is sugar, think about that, you're rubbing sugar on a wound, the bacteria can't grow. So here you are taking sugar, you're putting it on a wound, and the bacteria is dying. It's suppressing, once again, crushing science's belief. Meanwhile, when it comes to honey, we're still guessing, so science hasn't discovered why it suppresses bacteria. They haven't done the research. They don't have the technology either. They don't know about the properties and what they do and how honey heals the body, which leads to a problem. Because of that, people at the same time do believe honey is helpful to people that do believe it, right? So they'll say, well, yeah, for thousands of years, for hundreds of years, honey was always used. It was used in ancient history. And so it does work. And they knew what to do with it back then. So it's already been discovered. Like, everything about honey's known. So we could say anything we want about it, and we can prove it by saying it was done in the past. In the case of honey, it was used in the past. They didn't know why it worked. Cultures didn't know why.
Hi, Jennifer.
We knew they used it, but nobody knew how it helped the body. And now we're still in that same position. Science hasn't.
We're going to Alameda Theater.
They don't know all the uses for it. They just knew you could eat it to survive when you're starving to death. So it saved their lives if they were hungry. They also knew that if you got a cut or a scratch, you could put the honey on it and it can help. That's pretty much it. Oh, and then thousands of years later, like thousands of years have gone by and someone ate the honey when they had a scratchy throat. They realized it soothed their throat, so we could throw that one in there. But let's be real about where we are today. Which leads us to this problem. We're in a science-based world now. It's all about science. Everybody goes to school, they think science is God. They're taught that you have to have science to back up anything you're saying or anything you believe in. There has to be some type of science behind it. So when someone gets a hobby, or they get interested into something, or they get passionate about something like health, where they're like, well, I had a problem, and I was told to try this honey. I tried the honey, I think I feel better. But where's the science? Because I'm a science-minded person, so I need something to back up this honey. I'm looking around, and I see a lot of gossip out there on the internet that honey has this or that, or it's pretty good for me, but where's the science studies? Where's the concrete science evidence? Where's all the research? Where's all the data that really shows me what honey has? Well, I can't find it out there. I'm looking. I see a lot of folklore. I see a lot of people writing articles about information they got from somewhere else, but there's no science behind it. So then it's time to do the default. I love science. I love this honey. There's no science, but I love this honey, so it's default. And what is that default? Ancient cultures used it. They know it's been around for thousands of years. So that proves it right there. It's already known. You don't even need any science because the science is there already. Everybody's known about it. It's there. Ancient cultures used it. Indigenous cultures used it. I love my honey. I'm a science-minded person, but I don't even need science anymore. Yes, honey has been used for thousands of years, but making any kind of claim that they knew how to use it all those thousands of years, like how much, the amounts, to what for, to what disease, to what illness, to what it actually did, and what it does, is a whole nother story. This is a technique right now being used all the time lately, acting like everything's all sewed up. It's a weaponized technique right now, meaning that because honey was consumed or thought to be good for you a long time ago, it's all sewed up. It's all figured out. It's weaponization to work along with science that didn't even actually pull through for us. This means this technique can be used. For example, if I give you new information about honey here in this podcast episode, incredible information that nobody knew before, because honey's been around all these years, a person now can default it and be like, oh, but it's ancient, everything's already been known and sewed up. So if you hear something about honey here that you've never heard anywhere else, and it's brand new to the table, those people will use the weaponized default button, the weaponized default mode, which is, oh, it's ancient history, everything's all known, let me go and take that brand new information about honey I've never heard before, science doesn't know, no one's talked about, let me take it, poach it, not cite it, but then do the default button. It's ancient cultures. They knew everything back then. And by the way, science is probably learning all new stuff now too about it too. But they do this with everything. Look at celery. Nobody knew it was anti-pathogenic. Nobody knew sodium cluster salts killed bad bacteria. Nobody knew about the sodium cluster salts killing off viruses. Nobody knew any of that. 16 ounces on an empty stomach. Nobody knew how to use it, in what way, how to juice it alone and only alone and not mix anything. But since celery's been around for a while, somebody probably put it through a juicer with a carrot before. Oh, it's already been done before. Science hasn't studied it on any level, celery juice, on any level, but they act like it's all sewed up now, and they can say anything they want about it, as if it's all sewed up, already been known, and everybody's been doing it exactly that way for the last 1,000 years. But poachers do this with everything now. Look at Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine truly was about toxic heavy metals. It was about mercury. So what they used is mercury as medicine for thousands of years. That's what they did. If an emperor got sick, they gave the emperor mercury. It actually killed emperors of the past and also other people too, obviously. And Chinese medicine wasn't about herbs 1,000 years ago. Even a couple of 100 years ago, Chinese medicine wasn't about herbal medicine. It was about bugs and insects. So what they used for treatments of conditions was bugs and insects. So they would have containers of all these different insects, all these different bugs, and then animal parts like bats and bat wings and toad claws and lizard gills. They had all these different creatures as medicine and all these different bugs and insects. And then, yes, a few mushrooms and a few herbs, but 90% or more was creatures, bugs, and insects. Oh yeah, and metals, mercury, that was the other thing too. Chinese medicine, they had the mercury elixir. That was the big one. They had it for thousands of years. It was still on the top chart when you're sick. 200 years ago, you look for help in Chinese medicine. You get the glass of mercury elixir or the mercury powder. And once again, they didn't have technology or the right technology, and they still don't have. Science doesn't know what's in our honey. It's like cat's claw, right? The bark.
Adding new Lyft ride to queue.
Decades and decades ago, they just thought it gave you a little extra energy. But when you put new information out about cat's claw, like it's incredible for Lyme disease, because that's what medical medium information was originally. New information about how it's used, how it's anti-pathogenic, how to use it, all of it. But then people will be like, wait a minute, cat's claw's been around. It's been around. It's ancient. It's been around a long time. It was all sewed up. They knew all that. Really? Because they didn't know about Lyme disease 100 years ago. And they didn't know about Lyme disease anyway, even before that. But it's all sewed up. Meanwhile, it's used for Lyme disease now because of info. It's really sad how the world works today with that. You can put out life-saving information, brand new life-saving information. It gets poached, then published in minutes out there, and then contributed with the weaponized default mode that it's ancient history. You don't have to cite it back. Someone can't find the true source, so they can heal, and that's how it goes. Let's talk about one of my favorite parts of honey, what it does. It's glucose in your bloodstream. It's sugar, right? The minute you eat it, it's glucose. And what do we need in our cells? Our nervous system cells, nerve cells. We need sugar to keep our nerve cells alive. But here's what's amazing. You have glucose, which is the honey, filled with thousands upon thousands of phytochemical compounds from hundreds of different plants. Species of plants we're not even allowed to eat. But yet the bee transforms the power of that plant that we're not allowed to eat, turns it into medicine. So not only are the phytochemical compounds incredibly powerful on their own, but there's a vast array of them that we don't have access to unless the bee grants it to us. This is the most powerful glucose in the world on planet Earth. The glucose in the beehive, which is the honey, is filled with over 200,000 undiscovered phytochemical compounds. And all of those phytochemical compounds enter into your cells, which require sugar to stay alive and function, because your brain has to have sugar. Every nerve cell in your brain and body needs that glucose, that sugar, and those phytochemical compounds are in that sugar. These are pathogen killers, protectors from radiation damage, protectors from dioxins and heavy metal damage, delivered straight into the cells that need it the most, the nerve cells. And as things get worse on this planet, more exposure to pathogens, toxic heavy metals, and chemicals from chemical industries, the adaptogenic properties of honey help us through it. As time goes on in this toxic world, the bees adapt, then the honey adapts, and it helps us adapt. What are some of the symptoms and conditions honey is good for? Sinus infections, ear infections, diabetes, hypoglycemia. Now that's interesting, because research in science, or anybody in the health communities, will be like, sugar is the last thing you need if you got diabetes. Sugar is the last thing you need if you're hypoglycemic. Don't eat honey. Meanwhile, if it's used properly, it can help somebody move out of hypoglycemia, out of diabetes. If you're familiar with medical medium information, you'll know that fat blocks the sugar from entering the cell. That's why someone even has hypoglycemia. They got the insulin resistance. Their liver's all stagnant and sluggish. Their insulin is being pumped to try to drive the sugar in, but can't because the fat is blocking it. People go through years of insulin resistance without even a diagnosis. Sugar's not the enemy. Sugar's not the problem. That's why a diabetic could be having an episode, end up basically almost in a diabetic coma, sitting on a street somewhere on a park bench, and the only way to bring them back is to put a little orange juice in their mouth and to start reviving them. Happens all the time because sugar keeps us alive. So when people hear about honey, they're like, way too much sugar in that. You got to stay away from that. But realize that they're also jacked up on all this fat. They're getting insulin resistance. So they're going to be afraid of sugar, yeah, because they're on all this fat. And by the way, they're still eating sugar in all these other forms in and out of it all. But then they get afraid of honey. Other conditions, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. That's a great one because we need sugar to the brain when we've been through some kind of emotional trauma. And then all of
Adding new XL ride to queue.
styes, eye infections, even MRSA, staph infections, mystery infertility, because that right there is interesting. All those phytochemical compounds that are infused in that glucose enter the reproductive organs, helping women with infertility issues. Other bacterial issues like SIBO, and then insomnia, which is a neurological problem, adrenal fatigue, colitis, colds, flus, influenza, right? Norovirus, the modern plague we're up against, and then all types of cancers, and bipolar disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity, anything like bipolar, ADHD, even autism, or depersonalization, depression, anxiety, OCD, they need sugar to the brain cells. Neurons, neurotransmitter chemicals, all need the building blocks. They need those sugars. And the glucose in honey is packed with all those phytochemical compounds. The glucose in honey is one of the highest quality forms of glucose the brain can ever have. And so when anybody has a brain issue, it's critical that they get the best glucose to the nerve cells. And then there's Alzheimer's, dementia, and original medical medium information is about toxic heavy metals causing Alzheimer's and dementia because the metals oxidize brain tissue. They oxidize brain tissue and damage brain tissue. So brain cells die because of toxic heavy metals. And glucose is needed to revive brain cells, restore them, protect them, and bring them back. And the phytochemical compounds in that glucose help stop the oxidizing of the cells and nerve tissue. And then there's autoimmune disease. Original medical medium information put out in the world that autoimmune is caused by pathogens, viruses.
Have
And
fun.
honey is anti-pathogenic. It's pathogen killer. And honey is great for food poisoning recovery, upset stomach, plus it can help with bronchitis,
You guys too.
lung infections, laryngitis, thrush, and so much more. Honey's sticky nature isn't just a physical trait. It also applies itself on an emotional level. If you're eating honey and you experience something good happening in your life, a good feeling, maybe somebody lifts you up, maybe something great happens, then the good memories, the memories that are positive, those experiences stick to you. They bind to the brain. The glucose in the honey has supernatural powers. All those phytochemical compounds enter the brain cells when you're having a good experience. They allow that good experience to hang, to stick in your cells, to stay with you. So when a bad experience happens, you can easily obtain those good memories. You can go back to those good experiences, those good references. This is all part of honey's emotional power support. People who run from honey should realize something. If you could trace your family lines back to their oldest days, you would find ancestors who subsisted on honey. Raw honey was not just a survival food. in the sense that it simply got people by because they were starving until another food came along. Rather, it was, and still is now, an incredible medicinal nourishment. Honey is written into our lineage. It's written into our souls, who we are. In a sense, our DNA comes from honey. This means if we avoid honey, we're shutting off a part of ourselves that connects all the way back to the beginning of human life. Trends that derail us, cut us off from eating honey, show us how disconnected we really have become. When we reestablish a connection with honey, it puts us back in touch with ourselves. What else have we turned a cold shoulder to that helped make us what we are today? How much honey can we eat? How much honey is too much? How much honey is not enough? Let's start with the basics. If you're somebody that's eating any sweetener at all, any kind of sugar, candy, ice cream, anything that has cane sugar in it, switch it to honey. You're better off in every way. Let me start with how much honey I eat sometimes. Keep in mind that honey is really medicinal and it's self-limiting. Some days when I'm really busy with work, I don't have a chance to make myself meals. So what I do is I'll get some lemon balm tea, I'll get the hot water going, I'll make myself a cup of tea, and I'll put a tablespoon of honey in it. Hour goes by, I'll do it all over again. Another tablespoon of honey, another cup of tea. Another hour goes by as I'm working, I'll do it all over again. Another tablespoon of honey. This could happen 10 times in a day. 10 tablespoons of honey. This doesn't happen all the time. This could be a really busy moment in my life. I'm writing the books. It's late at night.
Hi,
I've
Natalie.
been up for a lot of hours. I haven't
I'm
had the
good,
right
thank
fruit.
you. And you?
I haven't gone to the store. But I need glucose to my brain. I need fuel to my
You're
brain.
going.
Now,
You're going to
keep in mind this
1500
too.
Alameda.
I didn't have a
Yes,
chicken
Avenue.
for lunch. I didn't have a double cheeseburger at the same time. I didn't have a vegan pizza, a bar of chocolate, a nut
It's
bar,
going well,
ice
thank you.
cream,
And you?
mac and cheese, a pasta, a bagel and cream cheese. I didn't have any fats, not even
What
vegan
did
or
you
plant-based fats or animal protein fats. No fats at all. No fat equals no insulin resistance. Now keep in mind something else. I'm not on caffeine. I'm not on matcha tea. I'm not on coffee all day long either.
No,
I'm getting energy
ribeye
from
steak,
glucose.
mashed potatoes.
That's partly where we get our energy. I noticed that the people who question sugar,
like a little
question honey,
balsamic
are
glaze
jacked up
on
on
them.
caffeine. They have to
And I
rely
had some
on it every
sorbet.
day. They're the people
Raspberry
that drink the most
Zinfandel
caffeine
sorbet.
or eat the most
Wow.
caffeine.
So
because
I am
they're
quite full. I
afraid
didn't
of
finish my
sugar.
steak
They're
because
afraid of the very
after
food
a
source
while it was
that
all
gives you energy.
it was
So they
rich.
have to use
Uh-huh.
manufactured energy.
So
You have to take the
to
drug,
figure out how to
psychoactive drug like caffeine.
eat
They
it
have to
tomorrow.
infuse that
Maybe I'll
caffeine
put
into the
salad.
brain and into
Yeah.
the adrenals. Then they have to run on adrenaline. 'Cause that's
You,
what
you
caffeine
choose
does.
a lot of
It's a fast
powerful type
Meanwhile,
of
they're afraid
foods
of
like
sugar. They're afraid of honey.
artichoke and
Then
Brussels
people ask me,
sprout,
well, where's my
raspberry
energy
sorbet.
coming from? Well, it's not coming from fat.
What makes you
I'm
choose
not
those?
bombarding my body with fat.
You know,
I don't have all this fat
I
in my
like them,
bloodstream.
but also
I don't have
know
any
that,
caffeine.
Oh, and mashed
I'm not
potatoes.
stimulated
Yeah.
on all that psychoactive drug.
you know, they
I'm
have,
not on
for
pharmaceuticals.
the most part, they have good
stimulants.
health
For
benefits.
the most part,
Yeah, they
I have
do.
a lot of
Yeah,
glucose, a lot
like
of different
raspberries are
fruit, a lot
very
of leafy
powerful.
greens,
Uh-huh.
a lot of
So the
leafy
raspberry sorbet. I don't know,
like
the sorbet
parsley,
actually, I
squash,
really
a lot of different fruits of all kinds.
craved it after
Wild
the meal
foods
because
like
the meal
wild
was so
blueberries,
rich.
lots of different
And so that
herbs,
really cut
things
through,
like
and
also
that was refreshing.
potatoes and winter squash.
Mhm.
But I try
and
to
different
eat
vegetables,
healthfully,
asparagus,
for the
Brussels
most
sprouts.
part. I just
I like getting what my body needs. Lots of glucose, trace minerals,
did
salts,
intermittent fasting
antioxidants, polyphenols,
most of the day today. So
anthocyanins,
when I
phytochemical
got to the
compounds.
restaurant, I was quite
And I'm sure
hungry.
some of you guys out there
So
are
that's
eating
why I
like
think
versus
everything just
fats.
seemed like
Healthy
so
fats are critical. They're needed.
rich.
Well,
and I
there is
couldn't
healthy
finish
fats
it
in
all,
there.
but,
There's trace fats in all of those foods.
yeah.
But I'm not bombarding my system with lots of radical
Yeah, I
fat
listen
over
to,
fat
see right now I'm
because
listening to
that
Medical
doesn't
Medium.
stop all those
Oh,
trace
yeah, I know.
minerals.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you know? Have you heard of medical medium?
Michael Williams.
No, it's Anthony Williams.
I mean Anthony Williams. Yes.
Yes.
And it's not Williams, it's William, right?
Yeah, Anthony Williams. Yeah.
Yeah.
No S at the end.
That's right. Yes, I have a couple of his books.
Oh, I'm like all the things that you said. I was like, it sounds like you've heard of him. That's why, because those are the type of healing foods that he brings up. You know, artichokes, Brussels sprouts, raspberry, potatoes. So I was like, wow, you chose a lot of good ones.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. People think he's wacky, and he is kind of kooky wacky, but I think there's truth to what he says.
Yeah, I know there's truth to what he says. Yes. I practically got all his books. Yeah, and plus I got his, of course, his Audible books. And I've only I just only started since 20. It was since last. Wait, no. I'm going into my third year, so it's since 2020, 2023, 2024.
Adding new XL ride to queue.
I started in January 2024.
Also, keep in mind that all those cookies, cakes, and donuts that are vegan or healthier versions.
When did you hear about him?
Oh, years ago. I've known of him for years, and I used to go onto his website and listen to his podcasts,
regardless of what your diet is. But always remember that honey is a potent medicinal medicine.
a couple of his books, and then I gifted his book on thyroid to my cousin because she has issues with her thyroid.
People rip apart honey, talk bad about it, send
So she
people
was
away
very
from it.
appreciative to
I think about
I pray and I hope she read that.
they're already in danger. They got enough enemies.
Yeah, I have the liver rescue right here, right now.
Oh yeah, cool.
I love the liver rescue. I mean, I love all his books. They all have their, powerful points to it.
Yeah.
And the reason why I feel like I bring right now, I'm like, this is one of my favorite, the liver rescue, because it has like the breakdown of the vitamins, the vitamins and the minerals, and then also the breakdown of the fruits and vegetables.
Nice.
As long as human beings have been here, the bee was flying beside
While
them.
I'm thinking of it,
And
when we
honey
get up ahead,
was a
if you
weapon
could drop me off
against
at the corner of
starvation and
Benton
disease.
and
It has always
instead
been a
going
good
to
source
my
of food and medicine.
home because I need to go to the store. I just remembered
Tens
I
of
need to.
thousands of years.
Okay, if you can let me know where that is, that'd be.
Sure. So don't turn or anything. Just keep going. So after this light,
For the bee,
you're gonna
it
keep
was only
going.
going to be hurtful, and it was the industries, the bee's worst nightmare. Some industries were good, and some industries were dark,
Further down, I'll let
bad,
you
and
know.
evil.
Thank you.
The good was to produce tangible resources without destroying the
But
planet.
yeah,
and
health is your wealth.
Yeah.
So
You're-
that our lives can
You
be
are. I mean,
and we can
I've
sustain
met
and
some
protect
people
ourselves
in my
and
passengers that
everyday life.
has heard of medical medium,
The
but
evil
I think you're like
created
the
poison,
first one that I know of that
confusion,
has like
and much of it
done a bit more.
conditioned
So
the minds of the
a lot of the ones that I've heard,
ingested
I mean, some that will still do the celery juice, but more likely they still do just the lemon water.
and ally.
Uh-huh.
The bee hasn't had it easy over the recent last 100 years, and even worse, these last decades. The bee
And
is disrespected,
as we get older,
underappreciated, and uncared for. The bee
things come on.
is losing its battle here on Earth, and the industries of darkness that
It's
create
really
the
it's
chemtrails
inflammation
and the other intoxicators, such as the herbicides for the parks, lawns, and yards,
Yep.
are shortening
Bringing
the
up our
bee's
hydrochloric
existence
acid
on this
and
planet,
bringing down,
while at the
thinning
same
out
time
our thick blood.
taking away the medicine that was
And
provided to
I'm sure
us
you've
since the
heard this
beginning of
before,
our
but
existence.
our gut,
The
they call
bees,
it the second
the
brain.
miracle transformer of
But a lot of
medicine,
people,
and the honey
their gut
keeps
health. You got to
changing
get your gut
to keep
health
up with
in
what our
order
bodies are up against
to
in
help
today's
get rid of the
world
inflammation and
pathogens,
to just be healthier
deficiencies,
overall.
exposures,
Yeah.
So a
and
lot of
broken
people are
immune
not
systems.
eating enough
One of the truest
probiotics
plant medicines in our hands
and
today.
fiber is a
If
big
you have
thing.
insight
You know, there's
into
just
its
so
value
much, but I
into
love
knowing
listening
truth.
to different tests and following people and all of that. Because I want to feel, no, don't turn here, just keep going straight.
Thank you.
How many people do you know who struggle with their health?
And
Chances
the
are,
next
whether they show it or not,
there's
most
a
of
little
the
convenience
people
store
in
across the
your
street.
life
You can
do.
just stop a little, or you can
Chances are,
turn the
you're one
corner
of
on the
them.
right, just so that
Whether
they're
you're
not
dealing with
blocking traffic.
anxiety, depression,
This is what I'm
endometriosis, acne, eczema, autoimmune,
all the best to you.
You too.
Thank you.
or any other symptom or
Here's to
condition, you're far from alone.
vibrant, good health.
Thank
Living
you.
with symptoms
2026.
has become
You
the
too.
new
Care of
normal.
ourselves.
Yes.
So no more guessing
That means
games.
a lot.
It's time
Yes,
to get
for
answers.
sure. Thank
Welcome to the
you.
Medical
Have a
Meeting
good
Podcast.
You too.
I'm Anthony
Nice to meet
Williams.
You too.
We're talking about natural flavors. Natural flavoring. Sounds good, doesn't it? All natural. Can't be bad. The thing is, we don't know
Yay.
about natural flavoring. It's everywhere. It's in everything. Did you know that it appeared after something really bad disappeared? Wonder how they did that bait and switch. Get ready, fasten your seatbelts, because we're going on a natural flavor ride.